round things.
Pretty much. Round burrs are super versatile. We use them for all sorts of things, like making the initial entry point into a cavity, creating retention grooves, and removing decay.
Ah, okay. And what about those fissure burrs? Those are for those narrow grooves on our chewing surfaces, right?
You got it. Straight fissure burrs, they're long and cylindrical, perfect for preparing those walls of cavities on the chewing surfaces.
So it's all about creating smooth walls that can hold the filling material. Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the inverted cone burr? That one sounds a bit scary.
The inverted cone burr, it's like a cone with the pointy end towards the shank. We use it to make undercuts in preparations for amalgam fillings.
Undercuts. What are those for?
Undercuts, they're like little grooves that help lock the amalgam filling in place, so it's all about making sure that filling is nice and secure.
Makes sense. So each burr shape is designed to create a specific shape in the tooth that helps retain the filling material.
Exactly. There's another thing I wanted to mention about burrs. It's called the rake angle. Have you ever heard of that?
Rake angle. That sounds technical.
It is a little technical, but it's super important. It basically describes the angle of the cutting blade on the burr.
Okay, so why should we care about the rake angle?
Well, it affects how efficiently the burr cuts. And there are different rake angles for different materials. Like a positive rake angle is more aggressive and works well for softer materials like dentin.
Okay.
And a negative rake angle that's better for harder materials like enamel. It gives you a smoother cut, but it can generate more heat.
Ah, so it's about balancing cutting efficiency with minimizing heat generation. It's fascinating how much science goes into all of this.
Right. It's all about physics and stuff.
Oh.
Okay, let's switch gears again and talk about those contact points we mentioned earlier. They're super important for a successful restoration.
Yeah, what exactly is a contact point and why are they so important?
Well, a contact point is where two adjacent teeth touch. They help distribute the forces from chewing, prevent food from getting trapped, and they even contribute to the overall look of your smile.
So if those contact points are off, I'm guessing that can cause some problems.
Oh yeah, big time. If a contact's too tight, it can cause pain and sensitivity. If it's too loose, food can get stuck and lead to cavities. It's got to be just right.
So how do you achieve those perfect contact points?
It takes a lot of skill and attention to detail. We use wedges and matrices, of course, and then there are all sorts of special instruments for contouring and shaping the filling material.
I bet the type of filling material also plays a role, right?
Yeah, definitely. Amalgam, it's pretty easy to shape and sculpt, but it also expands a bit as it sets. Composites, on the other hand, they're a bit more rigid, and they actually shrink a little as they harden.
Wow, so many things to consider.
Right. But when you get those contact points just right, it's like magic. The teeth fit together perfectly and the restoration looks and feels natural. It's like a work of art.
This is fascinating. I had no idea there was so much that goes into creating a restoration.
It's definitely more than meets the eye.
Welcome back. So we've covered a ton of ground, from those teeny tiny wedges to those high-speed burrs and everything in between.
It really is amazing how much goes into creating those restorations, isn't it?
It really is. But there's one more step, right?
Yep.
The final polish. It's got to look good and feel good.
You got it. Polishing, it's crucial for a comfortable and durable restoration. It's what gives it that final finesse, makes it feel smooth and look natural.
So what's involved in this polishing process? I'm picturing like a tiny little buffer, you know?
Yeah, kinda. It's a multi-step process. We use these progressively finer abrasives to smooth out any rough spots from the previous steps.
So like sanding wood, you start with a rough grit and then go finer and finer.
That's a great analogy. We use things like rubber cups and discs, each loaded with different abrasive materials.
What kind of materials are we talking about?
Well, we might start with something coarse like pumice for the initial smoothing. Then we move to finer abrasives like tin oxide or even diamond paste for that final shine.
Diamond paste. That
Yes.
sounds fancy.
It is. Diamonds are so hard they create a super smooth and shiny surface. And we don't just polish the filling itself, we got to polish those margins too.
The margins.
Yeah, where the filling meets the tooth. It's got to be seamless so plaque doesn't build up.
Makes sense. So it's not just about aesthetics, it's about oral health too.
Exactly. A well-polished restoration, it looks good, feels good, and helps keep your mouth healthy. But before we wrap up, there's one more super important thing I want to touch on.
Okay, what's that?
Diagnosis and treatment planning. It's like the foundation for any successful restoration.
Oh yeah, you got to know what you're dealing with before you start drilling and filling.
Right. We have to carefully examine the tooth, take x-rays, maybe do some other tests to figure out the extent of the decay, the condition of the surrounding tissues, all that good stuff.
It's like a detective, you know?
Yeah.
gathering clues to figure out the best way to solve the problem.
Absolutely. Every case is unique and every patient is different. So that treatment plan, it's got to be personalized.
This deep dive has been incredible. I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for what you do. It's not just drilling and filling, it's so much more.
It really is. It's a blend of science, artistry, and a whole lot of precision. And at the end of the day, it's all about helping people maintain those beautiful, healthy smiles.
Well said. So the next time you're in the dentist chair, remember all the thought and expertise behind those tools. And as always, keep those pearly whites shining bright.